tell me, yeah, it's not possible, because I really thought it was a ridiculous thing. Like, it's not possible if your sister's half match. And I told them, I was like, my sister's half match. She's not like full match. And back then, you couldn't do the bone marrow transplant unless you were a full match. And so I went and did the testing, and then I sent my sister to the testing again, and they're like, she's a half match, but we can do it. And I said, what? They're like, yeah, you can do the bone marrow transplant. I didn't understand what I was hearing at all. I was like, what? So they told me the process. They told me, like, what I would have to take out from work. And this was my first, it's so funny because I was constantly thinking about my work, because my work was my idea of security. You would think, as a Christian, as a woman of God, I would put my faith into God and just trust him. But I was so afraid. I didn't want to lose my job. So I said, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. And it took me time. It took me a year. So I decided to wait for a year to fully prepare, because they were like, yeah, you can do this. But here's, the risks. Here's what you're going to need to do. One of the things that I wanted to do was to freeze my eggs because of the chemo and radiation that would occur. But insurance doesn't cover that. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and save money start saving so that I can have enough to freeze my eggs. And then also I can continue working so that it doesn't look bad on my resume, that I just started the job and then I left, And sure, they have disability, but you have to work. Sometimes you have to work for a certain time in order to get that. So I just was like, yeah, I need to keep working, keep saving in order to do this procedure. And you would think I would do it right away, but there was some hesitancy because I still couldn't wrap up my mind that I would actually get this disease removed. Even when people say it to my face, I still get very shocked. And it's like it's something else, and psychologically. And so I decided to just keep in contact with the doctor and see what he needs from me, what kind of tests need to be done. So I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know when I want to do it. I think it was in 2023. I had gotten the news in 2021, I think. So I was planning, but I didn't know when. And in that earlier in the year, my company was talking about reorganizing. People were quitting left and right. And there were massive layoffs during that time in other companies. But our company was trying to reassure us that nothing was going to happen. You all are safe. You all are good. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to be able to stick around a little bit so that I can prepare myself for this reorganization, because they're going to need me to know what's going on. I can't just take 3 to 6 months off and come back and be like, hey guys, and I don't know what's going on, So I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to stick around. So earlier that year, I think it was February, March, it was definitely February, I went to Texas for this abstinence meetup. I forget the name of it. And it was very cold. It was in Dallas, and it was February. It was really cold, and I don't think I prepared myself enough for the weather because I'm from Florida. So when I got back, I was overcome with, I had pneumonia. I had pneumonia, which is a typical thing for me to have. I had pneumonia, but this pneumonia was different. This pneumonia got me in hospital for weeks instead of the days that I'm used to. I think I was probably there for 2 weeks, and I had to call off work, and thankfully my managers were understanding. And that was another thing. Like, I would be in hospital. It's my first. I'm a full-time employee, but I would just be getting sick a lot. And the notion of going to the bone marrow transplant was like, I got to do this. But I also was fighting with being normal and working a normal job. And what would they think? And I can't believe I thought that before, because like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to get my bone marrow transplant to be cured of sickle cell. Now here I'm thinking of comparing myself as if I'm a normal, average person, and I'm not. So I actually, for the first time, like, usually when you get a crisis, they hydrate you with IV fluids, and then they give you some medication, and this wasn't working at all. And the doctor that was there, I think he was a hospitalist, he was like scared to give me even more of a higher dosage, but I was like, I am in so much pain, you don't understand. So the hematologist had to come in, the attending hematologist had to come and be like, yeah, just give it to her, because her cells are, they can see the cells, they can read the reports, and they're like, yeah, this is pretty bad, like, just give it to her for now. Because yeah, it was bad. Probably one of the worst crises I've had. I think that tops the one where I was in the UK and I had a crisis. I was 11 years old, and we didn't go to the hospital because we were afraid of how much it would cost, because we were in the UK. And I remember all night long screaming in agony. This is the UK. I was 12 or 11. I was in a lot of agony because I didn't have enough pain medicine. I don't think I had enough, and it was the only thing that could help. But by the grace of God, he was able to cure me in that moment, and I was able to fall asleep. But it was so bad that even my mom's friends who were staying with, she was like she saw a ghost. She was so scared. She's like, what's going on? But yeah, that rivaled that part. And I was just in constant pain. The pain would just not go away. No, and this was weird for me, and it was scary for me because like, this is gonna go away. It was like a week had passed. I was still in this amount of 10 out of 10 pain. So thankfully, the hematologist was like, "You're gonna do a blood exchange," and I didn't know what the heck that was. I didn't have that before, which I'm blessed I didn't have. I usually just had a blood transfusion, but the blood transfusion wasn't working. So they did a blood exchange, and they just kind of exchange your entire blood with someone else, and so it's a lot of blood. It's a very hefty procedure. I think they have to put like some type of port so that you can receive the entire blood, and then your blood goes into like a trash bag. So it's literally what the word means, blood exchange. So and that immediately helped. Finally, I was out of pain. But when I got discharged from the hospital, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I cannot do this anymore. I am going to go back to the doctor. Because another reason why there was a delay was because the doctor that initially approved it retired. So they didn't have a doctor yet. So that was another reason for the delay, other than my hesitancy. But I said, I don't care about the risk. I don't care about any of this. I have to do this. I can't live like this anymore. My mom agreed. She's like, yeah. So we went back to Tampa. I met with the doctor. He was so understanding, so nice. He did not hesitate. Just like the older doctor, did not hesitate. He said, yeah, you can do this. We're going to do this. But then he said, I think that you said your concern was that you wanted to do the egg retrieval, the freezing your eggs. And I said, yes. I said, well, okay, you should get that done before doing this procedure because you are going to go through chemo and radiation. So I tried to schedule with, whoever it was. And I was in the middle of scheduling with the fertility clinics and trying to see which one would work. Again, working full time, it was kind of hard for me to put all of my attention to that. But God could do it. He allowed the job to be removed from my life. There was a massive layoff at the company, and I was included in it. So I said, "This is great." I was upset because I was like, "What the heck?" But I was also happy because this is another chapter. I can finally get the bone marrow transplant. I don't have to think about my work. I don't have to think about time constraints. Just full on do this. So I was on Cobra. I also had a GoFundMe. I was like, you guys, like, please help me so I can get the money for the egg retrieval, for the freezing of the eggs. And thankfully I had Cobra and also had Medicaid at the time, which I had to fight for because I was in Florida. And so that paid for pretty much all of it. And it's an expensive procedure, but it was all paid for. Thank God. Insurance paid for what they could. They even paid for the stay because I had to stay in Tampa for a few months. They paid for it all. And I couldn't believe that I was actually doing this. I was nervous. I was like, I hope there's no complications. I was watching videos of people getting cancer and stuff. But I just kept praying and trusting in the Lord that if this is your will, God, let it be done. And it was his will. And I don't know why it took so long for it to happen. I don't know why it took 30 years. I was 30 going on 31. I don't know why it took so long for me to finally be cured of sickle cell, but I'm glad that I still kept praying because God was listening to me. And I just think that when we go through certain things in life and we ask for praying, we might not hear. It might be a no, it might be a yes, it might be a hold on, but just keep praying, just keep having faith because you just don't know what God is going to do in your life and he can exceed your expectations. Initially, I didn't think that it was possible. I laughed in the nurse practitioner's face when she talked about the bone marrow transplant, but God made it a way where they can do half matches, and now they're doing the CRISPR, they're doing gene editing. I truly think that by God's grace, I will see a definite cure for sickle cell for everybody. Whether they can do the bone marrow transplant or not, they will be cured. I truly believe that I can see that in my lifetime because things have changed so much from telling me to just drink water to being on hydroxyurea to now the bone marrow transplant, the CRISPR, and all these new things. I was even on a different medication before that was just for sickle cell because hydroxyurea is a cancer drug. But I think it was Oxbryta. That was probably the only FDA approved drug for sickle cell. And that kind of helped. It made my eyes brighter, or white. But, now they discontinued it. So right before I went through I think it was right after I did the bone marrow transplant, they discontinued it. So, God works in mysterious ways. I'm still thinking about the past, God's timing is the right timing. Just for me because I went through a lot of, after that, and that'll be another video because it's already long, but I went through a lot of complications after my bone marrow transplant, and I don't think I couldn't have graduated college in the time frame that is acceptable if I went through the bone marrow transplant. And that was at the age where I did that they did the test. They right before going to college, they did the test to see if I was a match with anyone. And so God's timing is perfect timing because when I got the layoff, I was able to finally take time for myself and do the things that God wants me to do, he was able to cure me and heal me. And I could have given up. I could have said no. I could have ignored my nurse practitioner. But everything that I did was an act of faith, because I truly believe that God is a healer and he can heal all things. And that, doctors, they're smart, they're educated, but they do not know everything. God knows everything. And we prayed for the doctors. We prayed for the procedure. We prayed over everything. My mom prayed over the bag of the cells from my sister and the chemo and the radiation, those bags. She prayed over those things. And so God knows what he's doing at all times. We just don't see it. And while I don't really know why it took so long, I do know that it was because it's God's timing. It was the right timing. And I'm appreciative of it. I'm still young and I can't wait to do things that I never thought I could do, which is running. I'm going to make a video of me trying to learn how to run. And it's going to be so funny because I've never been able to run well in my entire life before. And so, yeah, I think that having sickle cells made me appreciate a lot of the smaller things in life that that we take for granted. Health is one of the biggest things that we often take for granted. And just being able to be healed by God, I will never forget that. And that will always remain my testimony from the beginning to the end of my life here on earth. And I hope this testimony encourages you to continue believing and praying and having faith that you will be cured. And I'm going to continue sharing my testimonies and what God has done in my life, so that you guys can be encouraged if you're going through any season in your life. So if you like this video, I ask that you please subscribe, like, and comment below. This will help people see my video and help encourage people and be able to see the ministry that God has asked me to do, and to also glorify his holy name. So, yep, that is it for this video. And I hope you guys liked it. Bye.